Arizona, homeowner's best friend.
Talking about the history and development of the Phoenix metropolitan area. I think, like you said, it's kind of become a tradition. I think next year, we've got to cover every market that our affiliates cover. So we've got to do Tucson, we've got to do Flagstaff, we've got to do Casa Grande. Because each year we'll pick a different developed area and go through the history and legends and
beautiful.
Sounds like a winner.
It.
Yeah. So we're here with Steve Schumacher, official historian of the city of Phoenix, and Mr. Don Ryden, architect and historic preservation specialist. Steve, during the break, you said before we move into the 30s and 40s, we got to jump back to the age of the railroad because that played a big part in Phoenix.
Oh, it was a huge part. Again, you're talking about a community that was primarily a bunch of farmers, and agriculture was big, and they needed a way to sell their goods around the country. And when all you have is mules and horses and wagons, you're pretty limited. So the train, getting it to come through Phoenix was imperative and very important. And in 1887, they finally got a train to come into town from Maricopa, and it arrived in Phoenix on July 4th, 1887, and it was just a huge event. But unfortunately, nobody took the time to build a roundhouse so the train could turn around, so it had to go in reverse all the way back to Maricopa.
And that was a regularly scheduled run?
Yeah, they started coming up, and then in about 1895, I think the route from, was it north? I think it was the northern route came into Phoenix. And then around 1926, after Union Station was built in 1923, the southern route came up. So Phoenix became, you could go all kinds of directions on the train. But the train itself, that feature was like Sky Harbor today. What would we do without Sky Harbor? Well, it was the same thing. It was a gateway to Phoenix, the Union Station.
You mentioned Maricopa. I always remember Marshall Trimble's little tidbit that at one time, Maricopa, Arizona, had the highest automobile ownership ratio in the country.
Wow.
There were 2 automobiles.
Oh.
And the population was so small, the ratio exceeded every other city in America.
That's good.
And they were owned by a rancher who bought him to get to his cattle.
Yeah.
2 cars for one rancher. That's great.
So we get the train. Tucson got the train first, as I remember. Then we end up getting the train, and it's a cul-de-sac train track where you're actually going backwards in reverse to Maricopa. That's hilarious. I did not know that. And we start building, and Don, somebody comes up with the idea. Let's go up.
The technology of building with concrete. Reinforced concrete was really taking off. It began first in Arizona in 1908 with our first buildings of concrete, and downtown Phoenix was ripe for development. Agriculture was booming, and so we began building new high-rise buildings. In 1919, the Hurd Building was constructed. It was a whopping 7 stories tall and was probably the tallest building between El Paso and Los Angeles for a couple of years. Then shortly thereafter, more investment came into downtown and more high-rise buildings came up on the Lures Block, the Lures Building, the Lures Tower, and in 1930 went up the Professional Building. So Lures Tower and the Professional Building are our biggest Art Deco style buildings.
And they can still be seen today?
Oh, yes, they are there, still standing proud and rehabilitated for hotel and continue in the Lures Tower as office space.
Do I have it? Wasn't the Lures just kind of like extensively redone like in the last decade? Or was it before that?
Yeah, it's been sporadically done, but in the last decade, the Lures Tower has been reworked, but it was the Professional Building in the last 20 years that really changed over, because it went from professional offices, doctors and lawyers, to hotel.
All right. So now we have the trains. Now we've got the canals. We've got the SRP. We've got the Roosevelt Dam guaranteeing all but a sure supply of water in the Salt River at all times. And the population is now going towards the six figures. We're approaching 100,000, and we're getting through the Great Depression, and we've got World War II. Where does that take us, Steve, in the history of Phoenix?
Well,
Big event.
yeah. Well, in my mind, World War II is really a milestone in Phoenix changing from an agricultural-based economy to more manufacturing. That was kind of the beginning of that swing. Companies like Air Research, who else was there? I think, Goodyear, obviously.
Motorola
was another one. GE. They started manufacturing the Reynolds aluminum plant out west, 35th Avenue in Van Buren was another one. That was a company kind of town. They actually built a bunch of homes for the employees as well. And
City's bumped up to 100,000, and we don't even have air conditioning yet. More when we get back right after this.
Rosie on the house, every Arizona home.